Aung San Suu Kyi, the civilian leader of Myanmar who was removed from power, has been told she'll go to prison for 4 years. Hello, I'm Rob, and this is News Review from BBC Learning English. And joining me today is Roy. Hi, Roy.
Hello, Rob, and hello, everybody. If you would like to test yourself on the vocabulary around this story, all you need to do is head to our website, bbclearningenglish.com, to take a quiz. But now let's hear more about this story from this BBC News report.
Myanmar's ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to 4 years in prison. A spokesman for the ruling military junta said she'd been found guilty of inciting unrest and violating COVID restrictions during last year's election campaign.
So, this story is about Aung San Suu Kyi, the former civilian leader of Myanmar. She was removed from power and replaced by a military junta. Now she has been told she will go to prison for 4 years.
And we've got 3 words from the news headlines that we can use to talk about this story, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We have sentences, ousted, and incitement.
That's sentences, ousted, and incitement. Okay, well, let's have a look at the first of those words. Tell us about your headline, please, Roy.
Okay, so my first headline comes from here at home at the BBC, and it reads, Aung San Suu Kyi, Myanmar court sentences ousted leader to 4 years jail.
Sentences. Declares punishment for someone found guilty of a crime.
Yes, so this word is spelled sentences, sentences. And it's basically telling somebody officially their punishment after being found guilty of a crime.
But I thought sentences were groups of words put together with a full stop at the end. Isn't that a sentence?
Well, yeah. Yes, it is. Speaking about language, yes, we talk about a complete grouping of words that usually ends in a full stop or a question mark, and it forms a statement or a question. For example, my name is Roy is a sentence. How are you is also a sentence. But obviously in the headline, we're not talking about a language point. The word sentences in the headline is a verb, and it's used to talk about delivering or declaring the punishment for somebody who's been found guilty of a crime. Very different meaning.
Okay, so we're talking about a kind of legal word here. It's a very official kind of word.
Absolutely, yes. So, for example, in a court of law, you have the process, which is called the trial. And at the end, if the person is found guilty, they can be sentenced. So, for example, sentenced to several years in prison.
Okay, so I say official word. So if at work, for example, I wasn't doing very well and my boss wasn't very happy, could he sentence me to more work?
No, we don't use it outside. We don't really use it outside of a court of law, to be honest. In that case, he may punish you or reprimand you, or tell you off if if he tells you you're doing something bad. He wouldn't sentence you to extra work, or you wouldn't sentence your child to extra chores because they arrived home late, for example. We wouldn't use it in that context. It's a very official usage.
And so we talk about to sentence someone, that's the verb. Is there kind of a noun form of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can sentence someone or give someone a sentence.
Right, a verb and a noun. Okay, thanks for that, Roy. Let's have a summary of that word. Of course, we've talked about Myanmar in the past here on News Review, and we did a story about when the military took control. Roy, how can we watch that video again?
All you need to do is click the link in the description below.
Good stuff. Yeah, click down below. Okay, Roy, let's have a look at your next headline, please.
Okay, so our next headline comes from the Financial Times, the FT, and it reads, Ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Ousted. That's expelled from a place or position.
Yes, so this word is spelled O-U-S-T-E-D, ousted. ousted. That last sound is id, and it means to remove somebody from a position or a place.
And there's a feeling of force about this removal. There's no choice in it, really.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah, there is that feeling of a forceful removal, and that is key to understanding this word. Now, when we talk about forcefully removing somebody, it's not necessarily physical. It can be physical, but we can also talk about it in the idea of it being kind of political pressure. So it doesn't need to be a physical force to remove somebody from that position of power.
And again, another formal word here, not something we use in everyday conversation.
No, you wouldn't. Now, going back to that idea of forceful removal, it can be, for example, a group of people in a place, for example, protesters, and maybe the protest has got a little bit violent, and the police decide to remove them by force. They oust them from a place. And again, that is an official usage.
They actually physically move people or try to physically move people. This sort of happened, though, at a party I went to recently where I ate all the biscuits. Now, people weren't very happy that I'd eaten all the biscuits, of course. But could I say they ousted me out of the party because they weren't very happy?
I mean, you could if you wanted to be really dramatic, but we wouldn't really normally use this in this scenario, for example. And I remember this party. We bought you specific biscuits. Neil bought you biscuits. But you not only ate those biscuits, you ate all of the biscuits. You found the secret biscuits. And Neil was really, really angry. He opened the door and he threw you out. So that's that word there. That's the one we commonly use. Throw somebody out. We don't usually oust them from a party. Oust, as I say, is an official word talking about removal of protesters or a political position, somebody from a political position. In this case, we threw you out of the party. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't eat all the biscuits.
Okay, noted. But just to say, throw out, you didn't actually physically throw me out. I'm sure you'd have liked to have done. You just kind of opened the door and said, go, yeah?
Yeah, so it's the same idea. You can throw somebody out like asking them to leave, or you can physically eject them. But we chose to do it with words, with pressure of words.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a summary of that word. Now, robots, of course, are a threat to many of our jobs. Maybe they'd like to oust the human being from a position. And we've talked about robots taking over the role of a doctor. This is something we discussed in 6 Minute English. How can we watch that programme again, Roy?
All you need to do is click the link in the description below.
Yeah, down below. Okay, time now for our next headline, please.
Right, so our next headline comes from The Guardian and it reads, Aung San Suu Kyi sentenced to 4 years in prison for incitement.
That's incitement, action or provoking unlawful activities.
So this word is spelled I-N-C-I-T-E-M-E-N-T. In the headline, it's being used in the noun form. The verb form of this is incite. And it basically means stimulating somebody to do something negative or bad.
And we could say it's about provocation and unlawful behaviour. That's key here, isn't it?
Absolutely. So let's talk about that idea of provocation or provoking somebody. Now, provoking has an idea of encouraging somebody, but encouraging, we usually use that in a positive sense. So I encourage you to be better. Provoking somebody is about stimulating somebody to do something negative. And that is the idea of incitement or incite. It's basically provoking somebody to do something bad or unlawful.
Yeah, it's like prodding them and saying, go on, yeah, go and do this. It's a bit naughty, but go and do it. But of course, it's illegal and dangerous activities we're talking about here, mainly.
Yeah, we wouldn't normally use it in a sort of a outside of talking about illegal or unlawful behaviors. This is something very serious. It's something big. So, for example, you wouldn't incite a friend to do something bad. You would maybe provoke them. So we wouldn't normally use it in a casual sense. It's more of a kind of more formal and serious sense.
And it's on a large scale as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's have a summary of that word. Okay, time now to recap the vocabulary, please, Roy.
Okay, so we had sentences. Declares punishment for someone found guilty of a crime. We had ousted, expelled from a place or position. And we had incitement, action of provoking unlawful activities.
Thank you, Roy. There you go. 3 useful words from the headlines to help you talk about this news story. And don't forget, on our website, there's a quiz where you can test your understanding of the vocabulary. It's there at bbclearningenglish.com. Don't forget, by the way, we're all over social media as well. That's the end of News Review for today. Thank you so much for watching. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Bye.